talk about the virtuous truth about tribulations and happiness. So, while all of us enjoy some form of happiness in life, and we really cherish certain experiences, it's important to remember, and we talked about this in the previous class, that happiness tends to be fleeting, and it is not permanent. So let's talk a bit more about the universal concepts and the three tribulations because we're about to hit a massive concept in Rhema, and this is very important. We're about to hit a massive concept called the virtuous truth. The virtuous truth is about our origin of our tribulations. It's about the origin of our tribulations, and what makes it so important is it explains where all these tribulations kind of come from. So the virtuous truth is very important because it explains where our tribulations are coming from. The virtuous truth is this: almost all of our tribulations come from us and within us, not from fallen people who are all around us or the fallen world that we live in. This is a very important point. I'll say it one more time. Almost all of our tribulations come from us and from within us. Almost all of our tribulations come from us and from within us. That is true. We create almost all of our own tribulation. Almost all of our tribulation comes from within us. And while that can be kind of disheartening, it can also be very empowering if you think about it. And if you take more of our Rhemite training, if you become more of a Rhema yoga, Rhema Institute kind of follower. So when we talk about deception, when we talk about misconception causing tribulation, it all starts here at this virtuous truth, because so many people don't know the virtuous truth. They don't know the virtuous truth, and they don't know, therefore, that much of their tribulation comes from internal things inside of them, not external things. And that is the key: internal, not external. The external things might flare up some of these internal things, but it is your internal reality, universe, whatever you want to call it, that is the cause of these tribulations in most cases. Now, some people might object here. It's very common, saying that tribulation comes to us because of original sin, the fall, Adam and Eve. And I agree, right? I agree that you're right. A lot of tribulation might come to us because of original sin. Self-focus is that original sin. Self-focus is that original. It was in the Garden of Eden, and it is in our lives here again today. So self-focus is the very key of what causes so much tribulation in our lives. Whether we know about the virtuous truth or not, self-focus is what caused original sin and what causes tribulation on the earth here today. Self-focus. There is good news, however. There is very good news, and that good news is this: once we understand the virtuous truth, we can then overcome that self-focus we struggle with to find peace on earth in great measure until Jesus comes for the second coming. And when Jesus comes, we will all have peace on earth, and we will have all goodwill towards other men. So why is that? Because our self-focus will evaporate, and self-focus is what causes our own craving, our own clutching, our own fears, our own angers, depressions, and etc., just to name a few. Self-focus, from self-focus grows depression, from self-focus grows fear. When we are free from self-focus, there is no depression, and fear fades away. So, self-focus is a huge problem, and it's a huge thing to look at. Now, I'm not saying that we don't feel sad at all, or that a Rhemite never feels fear. I know Jesus had righteous anger, and I know he probably felt a little afraid in the Garden of Gethsemane before he took the cross and was nailed to it. So how can I say what I'm saying then? Don't these two things contradict? Not necessarily. So a deep, true depression really comes from partnering with sadness, or choosing again and again to partner with sadness over time in a habitual way, to really meditate on it. The same with anger, and the same with fear. Now, of course, I'm not going deep into generational curses, I'm not going deep into demonic strongholds, and I'm not talking about mental illness. all these things do play a part, and we talk about all of them in our trainings and in our videos. I'm just doing a high level right now, high level, because we are just starting. This is an intro workshop. So this is how self-focus is the problem. And when we feel anger, fear, depression, it's because we are self-focused. It's because we are victims. We are really focused on our victimhood, our victim mentality. It's very hard not to habitually partner with these things because it feels good. People like to feel like a victim. We might even feel stronger when we do it. We might feel vindicated. We might feel like we can judge other people. We might feel like we can have revenge or retaliation without worrying about, is this right or not? I don't know. I'm a victim. So victims are one of the most dangerous things in our world. Victimhood, self-focus, leads to tribulation. So we know self-focus now leads to tribulation, as well as strongholds and sin, which further magnify tribulations. What are we craving? In most cases, whether we are focusing on ourselves or on God, we crave the experience of life. All of us have this in common, whether we are focusing on ourselves too much, whether we are focusing on God. We really crave to experience our life. We desire life itself, in all its magic, in all its thrills, and everything else. We desire certain material things, of course. We fear other material things. We clutch things. We clutch things. We clutch onto our desires. We cannot easily let these things go. That's why we're clutching. Having desires is good. It's not bad to have desires. Clutching to them is not good. Clutching to these desires makes them idols. Clutching to these idols leads to more sin, leads to a curse, leads to more tribulation, leads to more self-focus, leads to more. It's a vicious cycle. Clutching is idolizing, and it brings a curse. Clutching brings a curse. It's all tied up with our own sense of self, our identity. And this is why Rhema talks so much about another key concept that you'll hear in almost all of our teachings, probably, if you haven't heard it already, and that is sonship. Sonship. When we are an orphan, the opposite of son is an orphan. So the opposite of sonship mentality is orphan mentality. So when we are an orphan, we are self-focused, and we look around at our external environment for happiness. Happiness is the most important thing to us. So when we find something that we will think make us happy, we clutch onto it and we make it an idol. And we're so nervous that we're going to lose it because we believe that things are scarce and we have to fight for everything because no one is protecting us, no one is providing us. We don't really believe that God is going to protect and provide for us, so we have to fight to get our own. And resources are limited and we clutch onto it. And so we make it an idol. We will control, we will manipulate, and sometimes even use people to get this thing that we think causes happiness, and we will try to do this to get it and to keep it. Control, manipulation, whatever. And we do whatever it takes to get this thing and to keep it from others so that we can have it. We can have it, not others. We are clutching to this thing. We are clutching to this thing that is our idol as an orphan. We do not really believe a God of abundance. We do not believe that a God of abundance really exists or wants to bless his kids abundantly. But we believe that if you want something, you have to go out and fight for it and then protect it from others. And orphans believe, like I said, in scarcity, but sons and daughters believe in abundance because an orphan believes in a God of scarcity, or they do not believe in God at all. A son and a daughter believes in a God of abundance who provides abundantly. And so a son of God has no idols. He holds everything, even his most precious material things, with those open hands. The carving, the Rhema Institute carving, open hands. Because we know things will change, and when things leave or they change, We might feel sad or angry, but we do not partner with these feelings and we do not clutch on to these things because we know that these things were never really ours anyway. It was, like I said in an earlier video, just God allowing us to steward them. They were in our metron for a season. This is true for people. This is true for things. This is true for relationships. This is true for everything. Open hands. We have no idols. We'll talk much more about sonship and clutching and happiness in further classes, so don't worry if this, again, seems overwhelming or confusing. Just remember, in this life, we desire certain things of this world and we reject other things of this world. We crave certain experiences as well. We want honor, we want enjoyment, we want recognition, success, or whatever the case may be. And it often changes, by the way, over time, because we're changing just like everything else is over time. Everything changes. This is what ultimately creates much of our tribulation. And it starts with orphan thinking, self-focus, original sin. And it creates our tribulation, or much of our tribulation, because true to the nature of this material universe that God made, everything changes and fades away, even our cravings themselves. So it's impossible to satisfy these things on a consistent basis. It's an itch that cannot actually be fully scratched, ever. It's just constantly going to itch. It's that wave that we're constantly chasing and will refuse to stay. As soon as we think we caught the wave slips through our fingers. As soon as one craving is satisfied, we immediately crave the next thing. The reality is that our bodies need certain basic things to survive, like water, air, food, heat when it's freezing, and cool when it gets too hot. The truth is that most of us desire far more than the true necessities of life. It's our nature. And that, by the way, is not all bad. God made us to have a purpose and a destiny. And that means that we dream. And that means that we desire. And we are doing this when we are working as designed by God. Dreaming and desiring is not a bad thing. We are working as designed when we dream and when we desire. However, we must realize that our dreams and our desires are actually endless. Even if we don't think they are endless, and that even they must be held with open hands. It's very easy to clutch even to dreams and desires. So our desires are endless, and especially if we don't know the virtuous truth. And then we find ourselves clutching, we find ourselves grasping, we have a constant attempt to satisfy our desires and to satisfy our dreams, and none of these things can actually be satisfied, and often they are not even from God. And even if we satisfy them, it's for a brief season, and then it's over, we move on. Now again, this does not mean that we should deny ourselves our dreams, or even food and other material things that we love. The problem lies in the soul mind, and even the soul heart to some extent. It's the way that we identify with material things around us. Again, we're going back to it. Orphan thinking, self-focus, original sin. It's almost like we feel incomplete unless we are chasing after something, because that's how God made us. That's because God made us that way, believe it or not. He made us with a destiny, and He made us with a purpose that we can fulfill, but only with Him. He made us with a destiny and a purpose that we can really only fulfill with Him. So then, the problem arises not when we chase these dreams and destinies. The problem arises when we chase them in our own way, without God, not under lordship, not with a sonship mindset. And by the way, if some of these dreams and desires are not even from God, if this destiny we think we hold is not from Jesus, it's even worse. We'll discuss all of these things in our next class, but for today I just want to say thank you very much. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.